Hey everybody, it's Chris from Guilty Words, where we unravel crime one word at a time. Lori Vallow Daybell's next trial started today in Arizona, and I just had to hop on and talk to you guys about her opening statement. Now, I'm not in my usual setup. I'm still not home, so bear with the lighting and any strange noises you hear. Let's talk about what Lori said, what she didn't say, and some hints about what might be coming up in the trial based on how she introduced herself and her case to the jury. Let's take a look at it together. Here are some of the main patterns and themes that will take a few moments to go over. The first was repetition. The evidence will show. Sound familiar? The second was the amount of time she spent talking about the insurance compared to everything else in the case. She put a lot of emphasis on it. Also setups, planting seeds for later arguments in the trial. And finally, things that she didn't address, landmines she didn't want to touch today. In her opening statement, almost every single sentence until the last few began with, "The evidence will show." So why would Lori make that choice to do that? What's so special about that phrase, and why repeat it so much? Well, a couple of things. To say the evidence will show implies credibility. There will be proof of this. Believe me now. It gives weight to what she's saying so that the jury won't just think she's giving opinion, and they'll pay careful attention. The repetition is intended to drive the point home over and over again. The evidence, the evidence, the evidence, the evidence. But she ran into two big problems doing this. One is she repeated it too often. By repeating it with every sentence, by the end, we're spending more time listening to "the evidence will show" than the rest of the sentence. Think about a time when you've been listening to someone speak and all of a sudden you notice they might say certain words like "yeah" or "like" a lot. Once you get attuned to that, all of a sudden you're waiting for it. Sometimes you're even counting it. That's what was happening here. That repetition was too much. It took away from her arguments. The other problem is that some of the stuff she said, there isn't evidence to show it. And juries don't forget. They'll be looking for that evidence. And Lori has a really hard time understanding that her opinion is not the same thing as evidence. Lori's opening argument was rather short, and for a short argument, she spent a good amount of time talking about the insurance policy. What's interesting about this is I was watching the live stream with Hidden True Crime and then went to Lauren Matthias's Lunch Live, and she mentioned that in court, when the insurance was brought up, Lori got very agitated and scribbled lots and lots of notes. So sure enough, she had that lunch break to then add something about the insurance into her opening argument. What did she have to say about it? Well, the insurance was all Charles' idea. He sold it. He was an expert with insurance. He bought the policies. He was the one that wanted the maximum policies. She just agreed with it. Why would Lori spend this time really focusing in on the insurance when there's so much else going on in this case? She wants to distance herself from this motive because it's a really powerful motive, and it may hit home with her because she knows it's one of her main motives. She wants to show it had really nothing to do with her. She didn't care about it. She wanted to be very casual about it. We were married for 13 years. We had a number of policies over those years. If I didn't kill him earlier, why would I kill him now? She wants to distance herself, and she wants to minimize this motive because it is a damning one. Same thing with the Social Security. Charles went and helped us figure out Social Security. But she leaves a few things out, and we'll talk about that when we get to the things that she didn't address. Lori's next agenda was setups, things that she wanted to place in the juror's mind now to come back to later in the trial. Of course, there's Charles, and she did set it up that it looks like she's going to do some victim blaming here. describing him as angry, physically aggressive, unable to get along with Tylee, volatile, just the type of person that would run around trying to beat people up with a baseball bat, and so he had to be shot. Lori herself wanted to get her version out there, her version of what happened, and she detailed it, but it didn't really line up with what the prosecution said. But she keeps insisting the evidence will show. Maybe not so much, Lori. And she started the tragedy narrative. This was an accidental shooting. Families have tragedies. We saw this in her interview beforehand, too. She talked about the domino effect of tragedies. Now, the prosecution did a great job of outlining a lot of the facts and real evidence that went with this case. If anything, I think if someone wasn't familiar with the case, it might have been a little confusing in spots, but overall, kudos. But there were 6 main things that the prosecution brought up that Lori didn't address. And sooner or later in this trial, she's going to have to. The first was the religious motives. The state mentioned everything to do with Ned, the evil demon, and the light and dark. Lori didn't go near any of that, didn't even bring it up. Next was the crime scene staging. Now, she did address the baseball bat, saying that Charles was a left-handed pitcher and a right-handed hitter. But she didn't address some of the other issues about crime scene staging. The delay in the 911 call. She mentioned 911 was called, but she didn't talk about why there was a 47-minute delay between the shooting and when Alex called for help. The insurance beneficiary change. She tried to distance herself from the insurance, but she didn't address the key point that she did not know she was not the beneficiary. Premeditation. The prosecution spent a lot of time talking about the conversations between Alex and Lori and others leading up to the shooting. She didn't talk about any of that. And finally, the affair with Chad. Didn't bring him up. However, and I have to go back and look at the tape, and maybe you guys can tell me if you noticed this. I thought when she was turned and addressing the jury and she lifted her left hand up at one point, I thought I saw a black wedding ring, like the one she ordered with Chad. And so I'll have to go back and look on the video. But if any of you noticed it, let me know, because I don't know, that seemed very brazen to wear that wedding ring, which was one of the proofs of guilt, if you will, from her earlier trial, and to boast that she married the man she was having the affair with. It just, I don't know. It really struck me. Anyway, the one thing that I thought she would set up, and I didn't put it as an issue because the prosecution didn't raise it, was I had kind of thought she was going to go with a conspiracy theory type of defense where the police are all out to get me, because she's hinted at that. It may come up later, but we didn't hear much about that today. So what conclusions can we draw from this? Well, Lori was very poised. She did know her stuff. She made some beginner mistakes, but it's fascinating, though, because remember in her first trial, they had to delay it because she wasn't competent to stand trial. And here we are a few years later, and she's acting as her own attorney. This woman seems to be able to put on a number of faces anytime she wants to. It's a little bit creepy, but it gives you a good idea why, when she was put into a hospital for an evaluation, she could fool them, and why mental health professionals have such a hard time trying to diagnose her. In this trial, I think there are fireworks to come. Lori was getting her feet wet today. She's going to get the feel of it, and she's waiting. She is waiting for those witnesses that she wants to confront, and she's waiting for her opportunity to grandstand. Maybe it'll come in her closing. I think she was pretty restrained today, some hints of anger underneath. But I don't know if she's going to stay that way, especially if she gets more and more tired. And I have a theory, and maybe I'm just being dramatic, but I have a theory the reason that the judge left the stun belt on her, even though there are big burly sheriff's deputies who can grab her in a moment's notice. I think it's because if she's questioning a witness and gets agitated, they can stop her before she slaps them across the face or does something crazy. Just a theory. Let me know what you think in the comments below, and let me know what you think is going to happen in this trial. I'm going to get on as often as I can. Anyway, it may have to be kind of a weekend summary thing, but I fly home tomorrow. I'll be back in my old familiar place. You'll see the cat walking back and forth. And if you're new here, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. We'd love to have your subscribe and have you come back for more videos. Please like and subscribe. It really helps the channel out a lot. And until I see you in the next video, please use your words wisely and well. Take care.